welcome to this third game from Alicante. This is this after lunch, before lunch. I've lost track. There's 4 games on the first day, so it's a bit of a whirlwind. This is probably after lunch actually. So I'm sitting fairly close to the bottom of the table. I've got about 40 odd points after 2 games, and I'm up against this time something similar to the previous one in theory, a Hebrew army. Similar-ish to the Hittite army in that it's got some striped chariots. They're over here, and some other types of chariots as well. It's got a couple of bits of cavalry, a lot of heavy infantry, some of them pretty good quality as well, some skirmishers, and actually the terrain seems to have fallen pretty similarly to some of the other games as well. There's it's either a forest possibly here, or might even be a strangely shaped plantation. Looks like a field, but it fields here. So what that's left really is actually quite a narrow space through which my very heavy infantry terrain unliking sort of army is going to have to squeeze if it's going to engage these Hittites. And the other interesting piece is, because this is a proper doing it the right way sort of Hebrew army, they've got a sacred camp, which if it's captured is worth a huge amount of damage to the morale of the army. So actually, my command structure of 2 big, lumpy infantry solid commands, they're just not going to fit down here, and that's a really tempting target. You can see it before, you can see it's there before all of the other troops go down. So what I've done, I've taken my titular command of just 3 cavalry, and I've stuck it on a flank march over here. I think clearly, if they do get an opportunity to eat the camp, fantastic. But even if they turn up here, what that can hopefully do is occupy this blob of infantry, or whoever was deployed here, to make it slightly risky for them to come rushing out. What I've matched up, I've used the command with the 2 cataphracts that really they're not going to do much. They're not going to get down here, I don't think. Their job is to sort of sit in front of this terrain and threaten any terrain-friendly troops who try to come through it. My baggage is way over here, right behind the heart of my army. There's a little bit of a gap there, possibly for the 2 side chariots to go through, depending on what had ended up being here. But these guys can both squeeze together, then just slide together and form a solid line, and just shove pikes, Galatians, Roman legionary types through here, and then the Thracians and the bowmen into this bit of rough as well. So I'm anticipating a war of attrition about here, and doing something kind of clever with the flank march command if and when it comes on. So what does the army look like? Sacred camp, 2 medium cavalry. This is over on the right hand side. 3 heavy chariot impact elite. Struggled with those in the previous game. A brilliant general. That's a lot of command and control for those guys. Then another 3 heavy chariot impact elite. So you've got 6 in total. The light cavalry, mediocre. You've seen them out the front. 5 medium sword. I knew there'd be somebody for that rough terrain. And then finally a real sort of chunky one, medium sword elite, medium sword, heavy spear, 2 bowmen, ordinary general. But for some reason that's been deployed over on the left of the terrain, on the right hand side of the Hebrews deployment zone. So that's got to kind of march through an awful lot of terrain. It's going to be nothing near here. It's this command over here. So these guys, it's slow to come through here. These guys should be able to hold them off, and my aim is clearly I have to take on these chariots. That's what's going to come forward, and it's just optimizing my army to take on chariots in that space, and then if I can beat them and do something there, that's the theory of the army. So let's have a look. And the interesting thing about these were the red copper 3D printed ones, and this is a fabulous close-up. Interestingly, it looks like these are cast, or not cast, printed optionally with or without spears, which is pretty cool. But don't they look really, really fabulous? And here they are, go straight in, straight into my troops. Like this may be a bit later in the game, not quite sure. Yes, there it is. So wanted to show you this. So here we are. We've now formed a solid line. We've squeezed it pretty much together. Double density here of legions. They can expand out. The cavalry can still mess about if we want. Archers trying to get the medium cavalry. And it's really saying spearmen, pikemen, side chariots, shove them in the face of these guys and see what happens over there. So they come forward. Their medium foot come forwards as well. The chariots come forward. There isn't really a lot of options because we've got a lot of pointy stuff here. Where are they going to go if they leave an opening? The chariots will be through into them. So it's a pretty straight line up type combat really going on here. And ta-da, that's a 6. That's the special dice from the competition, which means my flank march is coming on here just as these heavy infantry are starting to do the long march through the fields to try and get engaged in the game. So they're going to have to do something, because I'm going to be on here. This is barely a couple of moves away from the edge of the table. But difficult for them to do that because the cataphracts are sort of threatening them. One of the chariots has come around. The Galatians, who are very good against swordsmen, if they can get the furious charge, blow them away potentially. They're there. It looks like these cavalry have been a bit trapped in front of the line. That's forced the Hebrews to leave a bit of a gap as well. And some heavy infantry have just been left behind. And I think they were coming over to come in behind the chariots, but they probably have to think again because there's going to be my cavalry coming on here very, very soon. In the other side of the table, a bit of a field. The only thing that can be ambushing is these rather cool light infantry slingers. So my Thracians are just trying to wade straight into them as soon as they can, get the archers up there. This cavalryman is playing sort of interference to try and distract this from running over my archers. But I want these in the centre and I want to get my pikemen into it. If I can start pinging away, there's a few hit markers on those guys as well. That can make quite a dent and potentially allow the Thracians to come in and join in on the attack or the combat against these super heavy side, not proper chariots. So here we've gone in, looking at this infantry so long away. Here's my flank march arriving almost unopposed. So these guys have actually stepped out of the terrain. So I've actually just thrown stuff into them. The Galatians are in, the chariots in, the cataphracts in. There's one more cataphract you can just see his toenail there, just to kind of keep these guys honest, but they may have to turn around soon anyway. So it's an opportunity to chew up the end of this line that's been that's come because they've sort of squeezed out of the terrain, which is a little bit unwise, I think. Yeah, side chariots never work. Dead immediately straight away. No losses. They both evaporate. Never mind. And there was the hole. So here, what we've got, you've got the heavy chariots. They're looking up. I've got pikemen here. I've got spearmen and pikemen here. This is where a chariot was, but in some ways, I'm reasonably comfortable not fighting all of those because getting spearmen and Galatians into this light chariot, they're going to have to go. They're going to be forced to flee away. They can't really stand. So these are now pinned. They're engaged. This is a gap that I can hopefully force stuff through. The Galatians are ready to go in there. Shame about that. But the cataphractors again caught someone in the open and given them a lot of damage. So they've still got to lurk around, and this guy's also a reserve. So what goes on here? Machine gun fire from the bowmen is taking out these medium cavalry very quickly. And the pikemen have managed to get up fast enough that they're starting to occupy the attention of these chariots. So again, a gap on this end of the line, a bit of a gap potentially there on the other end of the line as well to give me some bonuses in combat against these, the most powerful strike troops in that army. So what's happening here is my cavalry have come on and are running for the Ark of the Covenant. These infantry have suddenly realised that's terribly bad news for the whole army. So they've turned around and are going to try and do something about it. But I think that looks like it might be too late. Here we are. We've got the crazed Galatians going in. As I said, these light cavalry, have been forced to flee out of the way. That allows my spearmen and everybody else to step forward and be in a potential situation to flank the chariots if and as and when they're brave enough to come in. Galatians are in as well. Should be tuning up some of those guys with luck. The cataphract is still fighting away. So this is potentially a big-ish gap, really, at some point. And bosh, straight into the camp. That's 6 losses for this army. It's almost about a quarter of the way to, maybe even a little bit more than a quarter of the way to breaking the army just by taking that sacred camp. It's a lovely thing, but it shouldn't have been positioned there. It should have been right behind the chariots. It should have been in the middle of the army, and probably it shouldn't have been chosen from a pure game point of view. But it's so cool. You've kind of got to do it if you're taking the Hebrews. So the chariots have sort of got tempted by this gap here to go, actually, it's not good odds against pikemen, but it's terrible odds being hit in the flank by spearmen, and giving them an overlap gives them a thought that actually this is worth a punt. I don't want this to look so dangerous that it's unattackable, and they've gone in. They've given it a go. So let's see what happens in this matchup. So what's happening here is I just still, where the chariot was, it should have done a little bit better. It's allowing these guys to step forward. My cataphract is now starting to be overwhelmed just by sheer weight of numbers. He's good, but he's not that good. But it's just occupying a load of stuff while the Galatians get in. This cataphract can follow up. I just want to keep these guys occupied. The heavy infantry are now starting to close in on my guys, who've got to stop looting that camp quite soon. Otherwise they could get squished as well, and that could be a little bit awkward. But here we are in the combat. The combat's ongoing. Still, those guys have been driven off. Looks like the Galatians have gone through someone as well. So now this is a very, very big gap. That looks like a 2-hit marker, a 1-hit marker. That's another 1-hit marker. These guys are just getting decimated by the shooting. These medium cavalry sat in there. Can't really come in because of my heavy cavalry there. So actually the chariots have washed up on the shore against the impenetrable forest of pikes and spearmen, even with this gap in the middle. And the Romans are sort of safely at the back, hopefully not having to fight in this one. So, but look, here I go. The spearmen have turned the flank and are in there just in the nick of time, as suddenly these chariots are still tough. You know, they're elite, they're armoured, they can roll good dice, even they do have an overlap. So even if they're taking hits, there's always the potential for them to swing back and do well. And they've done a couple of hits on these phalanx, but now it should really be getting over for them as the spearmen come in. And you can see, having killed off, shot down all of those medium cavalry, the Thracians and the bowmen are starting to come into the engaged flank here, and this is just going to become squeezed, a bit like that episode, that bit in Star Wars where they're in the trash compactor. But you know, lovely figures, but it's still a trash compactor. So here you go. You got the Galatians turning out, wading into the flank of these guys. The cataphract has toughed it out. This guy's occupied the other one. So suddenly this is now an enormous gap here in the line, in which there's very few things. The best part of the infantry have got distracted trying to get back, and you can't recapture the baggage, but just punish my guys for capturing the baggage. But it's just left some vulnerable people out in the open, and it's left the chariots isolated as well. Yep, so here's my cavalry. My light horse are trying to sort of squeeze around as all these really good quality heavy infantry try to converge on them. But, you know, 6 points, I'd have to lose all of these before this is a bad trade-off. And that's not going to happen. Certainly not with the way the chariots are going as well. So the light camels are trying to come back into it, but they're just not great. And you can look, there's just nothing really here combat-wise. Another couple of dead units as I've turned around, squashed them in there. The cataphracts have got them. These guys are suddenly looking very isolated. This combination, cataphracts and elite impetuous foot, is pretty deadly for medium swordsmen or vanilla medium swordsmen. Over here, the chariots who were in front of this formation of pikemen, they're gone, and we're just pushing forwards to squeeze out the last two. One of them has finally started to break through. These spearmen are on their last legs, but look, here's the Thracians. They've come in, the bowmen have been left behind. They're going into the chariots as well, and all of these chariots look like game is up for them, really. There's just the one left, and he's got a lot of people to surround him and squash him, and that was 6 chariots. So that's another, once these people go, that's another 12 hit points added to the 6 from the baggage, and then the medium infantry, and it's starting to look pretty grim pretty quickly for this this Hebrew army. And that was it. Indeed, that was the end point. Cataphracts, who was supposed to be starting off by being almost a screening force, had an opportunity when the medium foot stepped out the train and joined in, got a few extra points, got reasonably lucky with how quickly my flank march came on, and it was able to gobble up the baggage, and I created a pretty potent anvil on which the Hebrew chariots dashed themselves as well for a significant chunky win to the Mithraditic.
Hello and welcome to the latest Madaxeman.com Army List ADLG podcast, in which I'm joined by